Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Summer Series podcast here on the Property Couch. Ben, hello, how are you?
Well, mate, I'm just happy for a little bit warmer weather. It's just a bit wet in the old November, and now I'm feeling a little bit, a bit happier about just warmer weather. Still plenty of water around the joint, but just happier for warmer weather. So, it's been good.
Summer, we love you, summer. You be loving the cricket season too, Ben. I know you love cricket.
Let's move on. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see.
Hey, we're in the middle of December here, Ben. So you'd have knocked all of your Christmas shopping on the head, mate. I can imagine you'll have ticked the boxes. You'll have had a good chat with Santa. You'd be in good form, wouldn't you?
Look, I don't like pointing the finger, Bryce. I don't like pointing the finger. But let me just say, supply chain issues. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name companies, but supply chain issues. Or do I go with, hey, they get my greatest gift of all, and that is my love and my time. And really, do they need any of those other spoils? Probably not.
Probably not, mate. But moving right along.
But in other words, I've got a bit of work to do.
And I knew where you were going with that. Don't worry about that. I've been around you for 10 years. So I must admit I'm probably not anywhere more advanced than you. Hey, this is a really good chat we had today with Amy, from someone who spent it all, and then the way that she moved through that spending thriftness is interesting. So you and I had a good chat with Amy. Let's cut to that now, and then we'll have a little debrief afterwards. So here's the chat that Ben and I had recently with Amy. All right, Ben, today we're interviewing a very special guest. We're chatting with Amy Coates. First of all, welcome to the Property Couch, Amy.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. We're excited to delve into a whole range of things with your money story. But before we get too far, can we go back to the very beginning? Can you let us know what money was like for you as a household discussion growing up over the dinner table?
So as you might be able to tell from my accent, originally born in England, both my parents are accountants. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. Used to take us to all our after-school clubs, but she did all the after-school clubs as well. So if I went to dancing, she went to adult dancing classes. Never really kind of told that you couldn't spend money or have money, but I had a pocket money every week. And when I was 0, I got 5 pence a week. So that went into a savings account before I even knew about money. So I had a little bank account. By the time I was 7 or 8, there was probably about 50 or 60 pounds in there, because every year I got 5 pence more as I got older. And then when I became about 9 or 10, I could earn a bit of extra pocket money by raking the leaves in the garden or emptying the dishwasher, those sort of things. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I did a bit of babysitting for my neighbours. And then I was like, I'm raking the money in. And I didn't save any money and I spent it all. And my parents are big savers. Like, they put all the money that they don't earn into a savings account and look after it. And my dad does a bit of stocks and shares because he's an accountant. And I remember once asking, why do we always go to the south of France on holiday every year for a camping holiday? And he said, well, we camp for 3 weeks because then we spend less money and we get a longer holiday. And I was like, okay.
So you were getting all of these interesting sort of tips on how to do it. What was it about the power of consumer behaviour that wanted you to spend it as soon as you earned it?
Well, probably rebellion, because you don't want to do what your parents do you? To start with, like, wait a second, I'm not my parents. I'm not going to do that. And now sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness me, I sound just like my dad. And I have to say to my friends, I'm turning into my dad. She's like, it's all right. It's okay. You're doing a great thing. You're building your wealth. Mr. Coates will be proud. And I'm like, yeah, probably. But it's a very different story now as an adult than when I was a teenager and a young adult as well. When I was growing up and going to university and living in London, I used to just spend all my money on holidays and partying. I didn't save any money and I just kept spending and spending and spending, and then I'd be like, I've got no money left. And yeah.
Well, camping in the south of France doesn't sound like too bad of a childhood. I just got to say that. But
it was delightful.
Yeah, it would have been amazing. But okay, so parents are accountants, and so what was the dialogue? So clearly they've taught you to get a job and invest in or save some of your own money. But what was the dialogue? What was the conversations? Was it taboo? Was it open, transparent discussion? Was it somewhere in between?
I think it was pretty open and transparent. I just don't think I was that interested. I think my brother was more interested, who's a couple of years younger, and he always saved all his money. And I spent all of mine. I'd be like, right, what am I going to spend my money on this week? Oh, I'll spend it on, like, if I went dancing to my dancing lessons on a Saturday, I'd be like, let's go for donuts afterwards, or let's go to the bakery and we'll go and have whereas my brother would be like, right, I'm going to go home. And he used to keep a little pile and he'd have it all in his money box and he'd see how much he had. And I'd be like, oh, I haven't got any money, doesn't matter. I'll just keep spending it, and kind of went from there. And I never worried about it. And then I just did what I was doing. I was the older sibling. I didn't really worry what my brother was doing. Then I went to university, and in England, you get a good student loan and your interest rate matches kind of the retail price index. So it's a pretty good loan. And my dad always said, once you get that loan, you don't pay it off until you have to pay it off. So you pay off the minimum because it's the best interest rate you're ever going to get. So that was part of his education as well. He said, you can have a credit card. Your credit card is for emergencies or things that you need. If you put money on the credit card, you pay it off every month. So when I was at university, I used to just, when I ran out of money, put it on my credit card, then ring my dad and be like, I might have put some money on my credit card. And he'd be like, Amy, and I don't have any money to pay it off. And he's like, right, I'll pay it off. It's going into the Excel or the Microsoft Money sheet. And he had this Microsoft Money chart, and it would have this ginormous chart of red of all the money I owed him. And then my brother would be in black of all the money he didn't owe him. And it just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just pay it off in 50 years time, or maybe I'll get less inheritance. I won't worry about it right now. I'll just put it to the side, carry on being at university. But one of the good things my dad did instill was, if you're in full-time education, you're fully financially supported, because education is the kind of cornerstone of how you build knowledge, the ability to do things. And then you've got that ability to then move on and get more money or wealth or experiences or help other people, which is kind of what I do now as a doctor. But yeah, education was the biggest.
So Amy, I want to lean into that a little bit more, right? Because ultimately you and your brother, polar opposites.
Yeah.
In retrospect, was that sense that your parents were financially stable gave you that confidence that you had a safety net? And so when the discretionary spending was running rampant, you knew that dad would come to the rescue, or dad and mum, I should say.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a sport brat. I definitely was. My brother was a nicer child to have. I just did what I wanted, which maybe is not the best way to instill a message to other people that, yeah, I was very lucky that I was supported by my parents and I could behave like a brat. And I do know now that I was a very, not the best child to have.
All right, so we've got to go through that transition. This is the important one, right? So
and did dad circle back and settle the account with you?
So my brother ended up with his first house deposit, which wiped out my debt.
Oh,
which was lucky for my brother.
Yeah, no, wow.
So he gets a deposit for an asset that appreciates in value. You
and
get your debt wiped out. So I reckon he's on a winning ticket there.
Yeah. But did you just say that's fine at the time, or did you think, oh, geez, I've missed an opportunity here?
No, I knew full well at the time that I'd had a great, because I did 2 degrees. So I had a good 8 years of living the high life. And the time in between my 2 degrees, I had a job. I had a well-paying job, and I still spent all of my money, and occasionally would ring my dad. At one point I was in Kenya doing a volunteer project to work out if I wanted to go back to do medicine. And unfortunately there was election violence and it wasn't safe to be in Kenya anymore. And it was 13 days before my flight home. And I rang my dad and I was like, so I don't want to come home early. I was just wondering, could I borrow some money to climb Kilimanjaro? And he was like, well, I'll only have to pay for the flight back again, because now you want to do that. I know that you're going to do it. So I'll lend you the money now, because otherwise in 2 years' time, you'll be asking me for the money to fly back there and do it. Because once I kind of decide I'm doing something, most of the time I do it.
You're determined.
And it's interesting, isn't it? That's the parent conundrum too, about balancing out the fairness. My brother ended up buying the house that we grew up in, and so what did that mean for me? And you're always, your parents are always thinking about that in terms of, evening the ledger to make sure it's all good. How did you think your dad sort of fared, given he was pretty fastidious with his bookkeeping? Do you think he got the balance right?
Oh, I think he was down to the line, because I remember once after all of this, my brother must have borrowed some money because some money appeared in my bank account. And I said, "What's that money for?" And he's like, "Oh, I lent Matthew some money."
Wow.
And I was like, "I don't need that." And he's like, "Well, it's fair. We're fair."
Oh, that's cool.
So he is, he's got a great moral compass. Like, he's down the line. It's split evenly.
Yeah.
A good parent's accountants, who are just basically balancing the books.
So, Amy, what's the problem here then? We're going through teenage life. You're studying, you're traveling, you climbing Kilimanjaro. You give dad a phone call. Credit ends up. Brother gets a house. You're pretty cool. Is there a problem here? This sounds like it's a pretty good shtick for you.
It's a sweet deal, but then it's not fair on my parents, is it? Because they're then having to give away money that they've worked hard to earn. And my dad loves working. I keep telling him he should retire. He's 73 or 74 and he's still working 4 days a week as an accountant. And I'm like, well, why don't you just ease in a bit? He's like, no, I'm enjoying it. Keeps him busy. Like, he can't sit still. It's a bit like me. I don't think anyone in our family can sit still. My brother's also very active and likes to do lots of fun traveling stuff, lots of sport. But I started to feel a bit like, well, why does he work so hard and why do I get all the rewards when I've got a job, I've got an income, and then I'm spending all that money and then I'm taking more? I thought, wait a second, that's not really fair. So it just took me a bit longer to mature, maybe.
So some guilt kicked in, or some what was that? What happened when there was an epiphany that dropped for you at that point?
I don't know whether it was a guilt or whether it was just that you can't carry on relying on someone else to fund or look after you forever. You've got to start thinking, wait a second, you've been given all these skills, you've been taught all these skills, you've been supplied the money to get the education to be independent and do whatever you want. Why are you still relying on someone else? You've got to become an adult. And I just extended the teenage years to a bit longer than my teenage years.
So you took control, right? So can you talk us through what that meant? How did you rein in what that looked like? Did you write a budget? Did you take some advice from dad on how to keep it down, to use your term, down to the line? Like,
I didn't really ask for any advice. I saved up money to come to Australia for a year or two, because I did my medical degree in England, worked for 2 years. And that's when you have this opportunity to, what some people say is your foundation year 3, because you do foundation years in medicine 1 and 2, and then your foundation year 3, lots of people go and either try out a job here or maybe do a bit of traveling for a year and then settle into getting into your specialty training. And I said to my parents and a few people, I'll go to Australia for a year or two, see if life's better. And within about 2 weeks of being here, I was like, I'm never going back. Which hasn't gone down so well with my mum, but that's okay. But the quality of life and the lifestyle.
What was that? What was, just out of interest, what was the thing that landed for you about Australia? That
it was lifestyle and the ability to. I came in the August and everyone was like, "Oh, it's a bit chilly," but I was still swimming outside, and I love doing outdoor sports. I hate being in a gym. I don't like being sitting or being inside, and being able to swim outside in the middle of what's winter in Melbourne. I was like, well, this is great, because it's a lot warmer, even though it's winter, than the UK. And I was like, this is great. If I get to go to work at 7 a.m, finish at 4, go for an outdoor swim on the way home, go for a run along the beach. It's a bay, but it's still a beach. It's a great lifestyle. And from that, I was like, well, how do I stay here? So I need to get into training here, start building a life here. And the remuneration for doctors in Australia is better than the UK. So that was also a bonus. And I thought, well, if I live off what I lived off in the UK from that salary perspective, I put the rest of my earnings similar-ish into savings for the first couple of years I was here. And that's just how I saved my money. I didn't have a plan or a specific budget. I just said, well, this is how much you earn in the UK. You lived off that. So every time my payslip in, because I was having a look at my bank statements from 2015, 2016, 2017, because the question was, what did you do before Money Smarts? And I was like, what did I do? So I went back and I was like, literally every second week, there's like a big chunk of money just being pushed away. And I was like, every second week I went onto the app, sent the money to another. So it was a lot of time. And that's the thing about Money Smarts. It reduces your money admin, or as I say to my friends, I'm just going to do some life admin. Money Smarts is 10 minutes of life admin.
Yeah. Nice.
And that's great. But before, I must have been doing 10 minutes nearly every second week or even longer, moving the money across. And then I was looking, I was like, and then some money came back. So then you're eking out your discretionary is getting a bit more and your savings goes down a bit. And I was like, and then, sometimes I'm on the money app like 5 times in a week, changing money around. And I was like, that is not sensible. But that's what I did before Money Smarts.
It's mad, isn't it? So you talked about Money Smarts. We'll dive into that shortly. But where was the pivot between living within your means? Was that just a case of landing in Australia and the income allowed you to do that? Or was there another conscious decision that you'd made to no longer live that life and actually spend less than you earned?
I think some of it came when I did my medical degree, because when I first went to uni, when I was 18, I said to my dad, we should buy a property that I live in at uni and then rent out to other students and get income. And he said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. No, obviously, because at 18, I spent all the money, I had no idea in his mind. Then when I was saying I wanted to go back to university, my dad was like this, why did I say she could be fully financially supported in education? I'd like to do another degree. It's a minimum of 4 years. And degree costs had gone up in that time, because the first time I went to uni, it was £1,000 a year for your tuition. And the second time I went, it was £3,000 a year. But I was lucky because I'd worked, I got a subsidiary from the NHS. But now people would be paying £9,000 a year at least in the UK. So that exponential cost of education, I think, is going to be a problem in the future for lots of people. But that's a different subject. But I said to my dad, and he said, actually, maybe we should buy somewhere for you to live whilst you're at university this time around. And I was like, okay. And it was the bottom of the GFC, but being the saver and good budgeter my dad is, as the accountant he is, we managed to buy a property near the university I was at. So I had somewhere safe that was warm, clean, close to university where I could study. So he sold it to me as, we're supporting you in this way. And then I lived in that property for a few years after uni whilst I was working, and I helped pay the mortgage off for that with having a housemate. So one of my friends lived with me. So I became a bit more budget conscious and thinking about, actually, this is an asset that's going to grow well. And then that is held in trust, that is split 50-50 between me and my brother. So at the moment, that's my first investment property that I didn't really think about as an investment property at the time. And that the money that comes from the investment there goes 50-50 to me and my brother. So we share the management via a management agent in the UK. But so it kind of came in slowly when I came a bit more responsible, which is useful, especially as a doctor. You need to be responsible in that kind of time at university, I think.
So Amy, you're 31, you arrive in Australia, within 2 weeks, you're like, hang about, this place goes all right.
Yeah.
There's plenty of lifestyle drivers here, which is great. You've got the UK debt, which here in Australia, we refer to it as a HELP or a HEX debt. What was the priorities in terms of paying that off? How quickly, any focus, any targeted approach to that?
Yeah, so the UK student loan, when you're working in the UK, comes out pre-tax like your HEX debt does. When I moved here, didn't come out pre-tax, and they looked at my income here and said, well, you can pay this much each month. And I was like,
how dare you?
So then I was like, right, I will pay extra now to get it out sooner, so I'm paying less. So I then focused on some of that money that was going into the savings, went to the debt, and also the income from the UK property helped. And I managed to pay that off, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But it was 2 degrees worth of debt as well, not 1. So it was.
Now, I think all of your Australian, medical trained people here in Australia going, oh my God, to only have a $3,000 or a $9,000 a year. I mean, to get the same type of qualifications here in Australia, it's tens of thousands of dollars. So shout out to all of those people studying medicine. There is a good light at the end of the tunnel for you. You're doing purposeful work, but you also hopefully get remunerated well for it on the other side, because
you do indeed.
Your HEX debt is going to be a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
So you come out that other side. That's great. And then, okay, as you said, it's time to start being an adult, start to stand on my own 2 feet. Tell us about the next part of that journey.
So all the money that I was earning extra that I would delve into on occasion, I was putting into a savings account. I lived in a house share because it was fun. You've got new friends. I lived 100 meters from the beach in Brighton and paid ridiculously low rent and lived with a couple of friends, which was fun. And then I was like, maybe I need to get an investment property or a house here. So I started looking, spoke to the bank that I was with, showed them all the money that I'd saved and what the income was. It was very easy to arrange a mortgage with them because they had all the data there anyway. And then I started looking for a property, and I was between Albury and Melbourne for work. And I was trying to look at properties in Melbourne, but I was working a 1 in 3 on call. So every third weekend I was still in Albury. 2 out of 3 nights a week you were on call, so you had less time. And after speaking to some friends, I spoke to a buyer's agent who would go and do the bidding at the auction for me. And at one point I was the on-call registrar operating with the surgeon, and one of the nurses said, your phone's ringing, I'll answer it because you're on call. But it was the buyer's agent saying, they've gone to 403, are you willing to pay any more? And it was a 1-bed apartment in Richmond, and it was in that little pocket of Richmond that's like Richmond Hill, really nice. And I was like, it's one of those 1-bed apartments in an older building. These are things I didn't know were good because I hadn't started the property couch, but I was like, yeah, but you had to go through the bedroom to the bathroom. And I was like, there is no way I would pay this much in London. This is ridiculous. So I was like, nope, I told you my budget was 402. I'm not going any further. And everyone in the room was like, yeah, sorry guys, I just don't want to spend any more than this. It's a 1-bed apartment. You've got to go through the bedroom to the bathroom. And everyone's like, Amy, Melbourne property is ridiculous. Have a little think. I was like, no, I'm not spending any more. He was like, okay, you sure? I was like, yeah. So hang up. It goes for 403. Obviously, I was the only other person bidding against someone else, but that's okay. Like, I'd set my limit and I knew what my limit was.
Brilliant.
So that's when I then was talking to another colleague at work, and he said, oh, have you heard about the property couch? And I said, no. He said, these guys have got some good thoughts and ideas on investing and how to get into the property market. So then I listened to some property couch episodes, and the buyer's agent I'd used was from a different company, and they had a setup where they would look for a property for me. So I ended up saying to them, okay, maybe I'm going to become a rent investor. So I thought, I'll move into that sphere and I'll work out how to invest. So they got me my first Australian investment property, but it was down the track of, has to be 45 minutes from work, has to have the ability to be rentable, but I'll live in it for the first 12 months for the first home buyer stamp duty savings. So that's how I moved into property investing in Australia.
Did all the right things. It was your principal place of residence, fully entitled to access those. And then ultimately, as you see, your career's taking you down into Hobart. So completely legitimate process in terms of what you're doing, but it's now turned into that investment property. So well done there. What were some of the takeaways? I'm keen for both money management, but also for property selection. What were some of the big things that surprised you or that you learnt on that educational journey that you went on when you started to look a little bit deeper around what options you had?
So it's definitely more around, so I was looking at places and I was thinking, well, I'm going to buy somewhere that would entice people my kind of age because they are more the renters. That did help a bit because I was already thinking about who was going to be my rental market. But thinking about proximity to public transport, because I always have a car and drive everywhere due to the work hours, the land value that goes with your properties, the cost of your strata if you're buying into a group of apartments or units, and thinking about how that would affect your income. That was all very useful. And then all those extra tidbits on how you can, or when you have your tax experts on, what is tax deductible, but also all the defense side of things as well, because I didn't have income protection insurance. I didn't have a will. I didn't have landlord insurance. I've always had contents insurance, but I then knew I had to see the list, get the ABCD of the foundations. So I'd bought the property and then I moved into getting all that sort of stuff sorted. So that's what the takeaways I got from the Property Couch podcast, but also some of your guests like Effie Zahos. I read her book and I did all of those 365 or 36 things you should do in a year. Like she said, 1 a week to get everything sorted. So I've got a UK will, I've got an English will, an Australian will, and those things. So those were ways that I took away from it, having those guests. But then your other guests like James Clear, his Atomic Habits stuff is so good to not just apply to your money, but how you get everything else done. So how do you, if you're working so sometimes I work a 70-hour week, how do I get good food? How do I exercise? How do I look after myself? It's making small changes and habits so that even if I only run 3K, I've run 3K, it's having your running gear nearby. I sent a screenshot of a photo to my work colleagues this morning or earlier today, and I was like, so I've got a new toy to try and encourage me to sit in my desk and study, and it's my roller for my feet so that I'm doing my physio whilst doing something else. And it's just adding in those little bits. And those are things that you take away from the property couch that are nothing to do with the investment property, but are all about moving from your survival, which you talk about, into that thrive kind of zone.
Yeah, well, I'm really pleased to hear some of that too. And what if someone's listening to this for the first time or close to just joining our community recently, Amy, what was it that what was the first thing that landed for you when someone recommended that you listen to it? Did they suggest you go back to the beginning? Did you listen to a random episode? And was it easy to sort of tune in? Because I mean, Ben and I bang on a little bit too much about footy and all that sort of thing, but I guess I'd be interested to know what your entrance was into our world and what message sort of landed quickest for you to stay on the path.
Yeah, so I think I probably picked an episode that was that week, and I reckon it was only maybe 150 to 160, around the time that you just about were starting that summary thing that told you, listen to these 20 episodes. If you don't have time to go back to the beginning, and you had like a PDF that you could download, and it said, listen to these 20 episodes. And I just put it on 1.5 speed. And I was doing a 40-minute commute, so I could do 2 a day, or I'd put it on, go and do something while she talked about the footy, and then I'd come back when the footy chat finished. But I will point out, I did pick Melbourne when I moved over as my football team, and that's paid off this year.
Yes.
Oh, Melbourne, yep, premiers, absolutely.
But it was only because I went to a game, and it was Melbourne Essendon, and the Melbourne fans just looked a little bit more like my kind of people, so I was like, I'll pick that team. And my friend said to me, they're classy, Amy, but they're rubbish at football. And she's like, probably a bit like you. And I was like, oh, thanks.
I was going to say the Melbourne supporters would have been a bit forlorn at that time, whereas now they're happy. So you've gone in, you've listened to the foundations, and I mean, what was the plan? So you're starting to hear the basics of what to buy an investment property. Was money management more where you were keen to nail that, or was investing? Because clearly your backstory has some investing where you're just keen to jump more into that. Where did the foundations of money management sit in all that for you?
It was, I think the property couch originally, when my friend suggested it, was more the advice on Australian property investing. But the thing I've probably taken away most is the money management side of things. And that's what I've tried to share with some of my friends, because I found one of the best things to do is to find someone else who's interested in a subject with you. And then you've got this accountability. That's or also a trick that you get in your habits, isn't it? If you make something an accountable habit, it's easier to do. So
what does that mean? You catch up with this person weekly, monthly, every now and then?
Oh, we're pretty good friends. So we speak to each other on a WhatsApp or a messaging service in like all the time. But sometimes I'll message and I'll be like, I've got $2.64 left. I was up until 2 a.m. and I really need a coffee today. And she's like, well, if you spend money on the coffee, you've got to take it out of next week's 7-day float. I'm like, okay, thanks, I will. Because then you're like, well, yeah, I'm accountable. So then when the float comes in, I then flick the other $4 or whatever I've spent on the coffee back into the savings account, because I've then breached the 7-day float. And at the moment I've got $12.69, but I've got it until tomorrow. So it's okay.
Yeah.
So just for the record, at the time of recording, it's a Wednesday. So clearly you're taking the Amy, the
Thursday approach,
the Thursday approach that we suggest, which is really great. So therefore you've adopted the money smarts, and therefore trapping more surplus, which is a real 180 for you, right? Because earlier on you're saying, I spend everything, I go traveling. Yeah, people can't see that on audio, but you're doing the old splash the cash motion.
Just throw the money away. Yeah.
And now you're someone who's in the top percentage of all Australians who are trapping surplus. So, I mean, what did that sort of transformation feel like for you to get to that place?
Well, it's good with the money smarts on the computer because you've got a nice diagram that shows you where you're going. And I'm a results-driven human being. So if I can see the line is going up, even if sometimes the excess surplus graph, because you have the bar graph and then you've got the line over it. If my bar graph drops down, I'm like, but it might be that month was the car rego, your APRA registration, but you're okay, because I know all the money that is leaving my bank account over the next 12 months because I've done the 4 hours. And actually, one of my colleagues, we were having dinner on Sunday, and he said, guess what I did yesterday? I was like, what? He's like, I did my Money Smart setup. And I was like, yeah, someone else. And he was like, it's amazing to see how much you are in the earning potential, like when you can do the looking at your stretch or what the other people in your age group in Australia are. And then someone else at dinner said, well, what, you spend like $300 a week on food? And I was like, well, I try not to, but sometimes I don't stick to my budget and then I have to pay for it later. And that is also something that is coming back from the pandemic. I'm struggling a bit because I keep using the line, well, I'm supporting the local economy. There's all these people that have been in these jobs and they've been on job seeker and they haven't been able to do what they want.
Yes, that is so true. Yep, very true. And so good on you.
I'm a little bit at the moment, I'm going to say I'm not doing as well as I could. And that's fair. And everybody should hear that. You can't, like, you can try and do it all the time, but you're only human. But you've got to remember you can slip out of that habit, or you've got the habit set and you will move occasionally out of it. But if you bring yourself back to doing it, then you're going to be okay.
Amy, you make a really good point that I want to just quickly go back to around you're a visual person. I'm the same. When you are seeing those graphs and you see that 1 month where there's a lot of expenditure going out, your monthly trap is obviously a lot less, right? But obviously it's a 12-month system. This is why standard budgets don't work, right? Because what can happen is if you're doing a budget and you've sort of averaged that out over the 12-month period, but say month 2, month 3, you have all of this extra cost going in, people go, oh, this is not working. I haven't got the money that I thought it would have, because they're not looking at the 12-month program. So that in itself is just another example of how running a rules-based money management system that goes over a 12-month period. And as you say, every dollar's got a job to do, which you just highlighted there. You don't panic about it so much. You still see it there and you think, oh, what's happened? That's what's happened. I've had extra bills for that month that I pay annually, and that's why that month's not looking great, but I know it'll balance itself out over the course of the 12-month period. So that's super awesome. I've got a question around the money management approach that you're now taking, and that is, how do you think it now makes your life better? What is it about that system that's making your life better?
It's the time saving, because before the meeting today, I did my update. So I have just completed my Money Smarts final one of the year for the month. It's taken me 5 minutes, and I may have exceeded my closed budget by $54, but that's $54 I might not be able to use next year, or I've not used that on a holiday this year.
Oh, that's outstanding. But to get that close, as you say, in a pandemic where you're also conscious of supporting those who have been less fortunate during this time is a wonderful result. So congratulations to you. So saving time, just feeling more organized. What does it make you then think about? Because this is the next transition. So great money management means you trap more surplus, right? What is it about that surplus that you're going to then focus in on? Because as you say, you now have opportunities with that money. What are you thinking about doing next?
So I was fortunate enough, because I've been doing Money Smarts for maybe 3 years. Last year, during the pandemic, I could buy another investment property. So last October, I had a meeting with the buyer's agent, the mortgage broker, and by the 10th or 14th of December, I had a new investment property.
Awesome. And in terms of plan to become what you plan to become, what does that look like for you in terms of what does that allow you to do? What sort of targets are you looking at? And, in terms of, are we having an earlier retirement or are we having a comfortable retirement? What does that look like?
So for me, it's the ability when I'm in my mid-50s to not work a full 5-day week, which hopefully my bosses don't hear at present. But when I am older, I might not want to work a 5-day week.
That's 20 years away, Amy. That's 20 years away.
But it means, and the only 2 things I now have left to buy to do that are my principal place of residence and the beach house, which will be partially a rental via Airbnb, but available for me to use, especially when I maybe only work less than 5 days a week.
Yeah, possibly. Who knows? Maybe,
Yeah. But I do really enjoy my job, and I know that I'm not going to be able to not work. That's not the plan. I don't want to be sitting at home doing nothing. Like, I have a great job that I'm enjoy doing. So it's just having the freedom to do that job where I want. And if you're working for a government organization, then sometimes you are restricted, and they make you, or say these are the hours, or the only hours that are available, because there'll be other people that need the work as well.
Amy, you could be in a dangerous category, right? Because your dad invested in you, that education was important, and you went that path. You took 2 degrees, and clearly you're reaping the benefits of that investment in your education. But given the profession that you're in, and generally the luxury of good income that you get, I've observed a lot of people that are in a really dangerous space, and you've kind of showcased to our listeners, or anyone that can relate to that it is still really important to manage that 7-day float, to manage the surplus, and you're able to use that opportunity to put it into your future. Because quite often people with good incomes have the luxury of covering up lazy habits, and they can just spend, and knowing that next month they can cover up the holes really quickly, and live this life a little bit like what you had in your late 20s, early 30s, but they can continue to have it in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and then realize that they were living for the moment. So what sort of, your peers and your friends, it sounds like you've got accountability partners and you're encouraging more people to go into the money smarts, but is that a message that you're conscious of to sharing with your colleagues who find themselves in a similar position to you, probably with good surplus income, to make sure that they're conscious of not frittering it away and making sure that they do trap it? Is that something that you're conscious of with your peers?
So I feel that as a more senior doctor now, because I have juniors that have finished university and are starting, like, I'm not a financial advisor, but I feel that they should see that you can either spend all your money, or you can strive to not have to be working at 65. So I will talk openly about what I do from how I budget my money. And that's why one of my friends said, "What's money smarts?" And I said, "Oh, this is how I do it." I also have friends who one was working as a surgical registrar in a similar role that I did. Hopefully she won't mind me talking about this, because I'm not going to use any names. And she then changed to a different job, but she lived in that lifestyle still, and she spent a lot of money. And she called me one day, because I'd always talked about what I was doing with my investing. And she said, "I'm in trouble." She said, "I've got this car loan, got my credit card loan, and I've dropped down my hours, and I'm not earning as much money anymore." So first of all, I took her to the Barefoot Investor, and I sat down. I said, "Look, these are mistakes that we all made." And I told her, I was like, "This is what I did when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s. Luckily, I had very supportive parents, and I borrowed all the money from my parents to pay off my credit card debt. But what we've got to pay off first is your credit card debt." So then she started a budget after reading the Barefoot Investor, because I think that's a very good way to start, because not everybody gets to have an income that's as good as mine. And the Barefoot Investor is a very good advice way for you to start thinking about money. And then once you've managed that and moved into your money management and being able to have excess, then it's a very good way to move into the property investing or the property couch. Or if you want to do share investing, you can do whatever investing you want, but you've got to start at the bottom, learn the basics, and then move forwards. So I do talk about it a lot, and I talk to friends who aren't in medicine, and I talk to friends that are in medicine, and I try and encourage the junior members of my team to think about what they want. And one of the interns, I didn't know that well, but she's already bought an investment, bought her first property, her first year out of med school. So we were all like, "Great job." The other day, we're like, "Good work. Like, how have you got your first home as an intern?" We're like, "We were never that good." Good work. So I think talking about it, normalizing it, makes it a bit easier. But hopefully I do let other people know that don't have to spend all the money. But I don't know.
Amy, it's interesting how that you've gone on this journey of discovery. You're now potentially, also giving your lived experience as part of the guiding process and having conversations around money management. And I think that's super. I'm interested in terms of, you use the story of someone who's in a lot of debt and, looking at separating out all different money into different jars so they can at least get some sense of it. What if someone was to come to you who did have a basic grasp of organising their money, but they wanted to put their money, on supercharge? Would you still go the Barefoot Investor way, or would you look at Money Smart straight away? Because I'm curious as to what that answer would be.
So I would ask them what their goal is. like, because you need a goal, otherwise you don't know where you're going. And mine was the ability to not have to work for somebody else, which as a doctor, you will end up working for the government for the majority of your lifespan, but you want to have the flexibility to say, I don't like where this is going. I only want to work this many hours for you. Or do you want to get married, have children, pay for your children to go to school and get the same education you've had? You've got to work out what you need. And then you go back from there, which is what you do with the property couch. So I would send people towards that concept of how to work out what you want, but they don't have to do property. Because I always, my dad's daughter, and I do say to my friends, the best thing to do first is to put extra in your super. And that's one of the best for me, in my opinion, and that's what my accountant says. But I do two things. I put extra in my super because I started my super late because I came over from the UK. But then I put my extra money in property because I can see the building. I can provide somebody else with a home. So I feel like somebody else is benefiting whilst I still benefit with the capital growth, the fact that they pay my rent. I don't think that all my money should go into shares, because then a businessman gets all the outcome of my hard-earned cash, which might sound a bit selfish, but I try and have a bit of everything. But my main thing for property is it's something I can see. It's something I know a little bit about, and that's what you should do. You shouldn't invest in things you don't understand. Because someone said to me, what about Bitcoin? And I was like, no way. I don't have A, the interest, B, the time to work out how to do it. And you probably can make money off it, but I just don't have any desire or interest in doing that. So then it's pointing that friend who says, I want to invest money. I say, well, what do you comfortable investing in? Do you want to see the building? Do you want to do stocks and shares because they've got a proven track record, but sometimes you will lose money? And what is your risk profile, which is what you talk about in the episodes. And that's how you work out what you want. Because it doesn't have to be property, but you do need to think about building your wealth. And then you work out your personality type and what you want to risk or not risk and what you want to achieve with it.
Well, my message is you're not going to save your way to retirement or an effective retirement. So it's about trapping the surplus and then investing in something that you feel comfortable with. Clearly, we're residential property. Hey, Amy, can I ask you a question through the eyes of someone listening to this for the first time or trying to understand how to manage their money and hearing you say, I've been doing this for 3 years and I've got to wait till tomorrow before the float. Ben and I say that it takes less than 10 minutes a month. You've been doing it for 3 years. Have you found that to be true or false? Have you and what is the I guess the flow on benefits of not having to worry about money day to day anymore been for you in your life?
So for me, I can probably do it in 5 minutes because I pay for everything on the same card. So I just open that app and I go, okay, there's 2 transactions on clothing. So clothing goes in, or I've spent this much on gifts this month and I just put it into the Money Smarts. And then I do have a credit card that I pay the majority of things off. And then I just pay that off at the end each month. So then I've got the total summary there that goes in, plugged in. And then I just have this line graph that tells me how much money I've got in the bank. So it is just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how quick you are at typing and where you keep your money. If you have more than 1 account or 3 accounts, it might be a little bit longer. When I first started, I used to just jot down in the notes section on my phone, been to H&M, paid $30 for a skirt, or went to somewhere, bought a gift, sent someone's gift in the post, and spent $70 on so-and-so's gift. And then I'd have that all at the end of the month. But now I don't even do that because I just pay for everything on one card. So then I just scroll through the card thing and I know.
So is that a debit card for you, or that's a debit card that
I put everything on a credit card and I keep all my excess money in my offset so that then there's less interest paid on my investment properties interest. And then that every month is paid off in full because I've done it with the credit card and loans jar. So it just all is automated.
And do you do an automatic sweep of the credit card payment? So you don't have to leave it to chance or memory on that one?
Yeah, every month it goes. But I do look at it and make sure that someone hasn't used my card, or I don't just ignore the credit card bill.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that could be problematic if someone gets it.
And the 7-day float, Amy, how are you then managing to that sort of $2.60, for example, or something like that if you're using a single card?
I'll have a debit card for that. That's it.
Okay, so there's a debit card for the living lifestyle, good.
Yep.
But all the bills and everything, all the other spending go great.
Petrol, so you've got everything, food, all goes on the credit card. Or the weekly food shop.
Yep.
Coffees, going out to the cinema or whatever, buying a magazine, 7-day float.
Excellent. Yeah. So it's that routine, regular stuff that you're trying to get into the habit of, that you don't need to track. You're gamifying it by making sure you don't overspend that each month. And then as I said, it slows your spending down at the end of that week until the new payday. And then all of the regular bills and all of that you're putting on a credit card, which is classic 101 Money Smart. So that makes a lot of sense to me, because I was wondering how you could manage that 7-day float if it was all on the one card, but you just answered that question.
I tried at the beginning, but it's too hard.
Yeah, you won't get there. That's where the slippage happens. Yep.
Having the vision on an app that is just like, my 7-day float is $105 a week.
Yeah.
Before I had a meeting with a financial planner, it was $350, and he was like, "No, Amy, that is not a 7-day float. That's." I was like,
"That's a fun float."
So to start with, the 7-day float was hard when it moved from $350 to $105.
I can tell you the best thing about appreciating wealth, though, Amy, is that when you get to my age, which is a long, long way away for you, and that wealth does build up, guess what? Your 7-day float can actually go up a little bit higher as well,
I hope so.
because you've done the hard yards, right? So, and that's the whole beauty of, making money, and, and so that is where you get the joy. And whether that joy is, and as you say, is in 4 days a week or whatever it is, you just get choice, and you get, complete freedom and control. So I think that's all credit to you.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not always sticking to it. Like, I'm not perfect, and you do kind of go, that's the best Australian Tassie sparkling wine. Maybe I'll just buy 2 bottles of that. And I'm like, I'll just get my credit card out, and then like 3 weeks later it's delivered, and I'm like, oh well.
Yeah, you know what? For me, that finds its way into the holiday budget.
Yeah.
So our holiday budget is really the splurge budget. We're like, well, I'm using that for entertainment. I'm using that so I have a holiday and an entertainment, and so I have those 2 little ones where there's a little bit of grace, and I account for them. But because they're in a provision jar, you're still recording those, right? Because you're like, oh, I do spend a bit on that, don't I? Okay, well, I've got to keep an eye on that. But yes, I love it.
So, Amy, where is the potential for you to derail, right? Because people listening to this, is, you're wedded into it now. You can see that after 3 years, it's working for you. You've now got an accountability group, and you're talking to a lot of people. So birds of a feather flock together. So you're attracting all these people that are in your world that are wanting to have these sorts of conversations with you. Where do you think the biggest, where are you most at risk here? Like, you just talked about the wine. Where is what are you consciously looking out for that could derail this plan for you to work 4 days a week when you're in that retirement age? What are you constantly on the lookout for?
So for me, it's going to be holidays when the borders are open,
mm-hmm.
because my holiday budget has been minimal for the last 2 years, and I might change that, and then that will change my excess, my surplus that I'm getting. So I might, for the next 2 years, I might say, well, maybe I take a hit on that to be able to go back to the UK or Europe and see family and friends. And it might mean that my budget changes a bit. And that might mean, instead of 45, which is the beach house age, I tell my colleagues I'm 27, by the way. That's when the beach house.
Well, you are, aren't you? I mean,
I am 27. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's clear as day.
That it might be, and one of my friends said to me the other day, well, maybe it's an extra year. And I'm like, yeah, maybe it is an extra year. But at the moment, I'm supposed to be buying on the plan, because I got a plan last year. My principal place of residence would be October next year, but I'm trying to bring it forwards and try and find it one for February, March, because I'm moving back to Melbourne. So
awesome.
I have changed things around a little bit, so that might derail things, as in there won't be any spending for the first half of the year if I manage to sort that out. But yeah, holidays, definitely wine. And when I get back to living closer to more friends, I've got some friends in Hobart, but I've only lived here for a year. So luckily I've got a slightly smaller social circle. So there's not as many invites to say, well, the border's like everything's open. Let's go for dinner. But with my work colleagues, we've got a bit better. We now have lunch club where we bring in our own lunch rather than going out every time to get lunch. But those, slippage is definitely that lunchtime run, the coffees, but it's also holidays for me, going out for dinner, popping to a winery and trying a few wines and going, oh, well, it's cheaper to have them in the cupboard than having to go to the bottler and then spending at the bottler, because I'm supporting the local economy as well. So that's one of my other, but that's how I do the same. I do try and put it into the holiday budget, because I'm like, well, I was away at the winery, so it goes in the holiday budget. And those are things that will, maybe derail me a bit.
Yeah, well, and they're all temptations that everyone faces, right? So it's good that people can hear that. Yeah, you've got it dialed in. You've been doing this for a long time now, but you still have those temptations.
And the progress is real.
Yeah, and one of my friends did say it's quite nice having you in Hobart because it means I don't spend as much, because I'm always like, well, we could go for dinner here, because I'm like, well, it's in the budget. So yeah, let's go for dinner here. She's like, when you're away, I do spend a lot less on going out. And I'm like,
yeah, well,
so I'm not the best influence either.
No, well, if they've got their money smarts in order, they don't have to worry then, because they can say yes or no. It's Wednesday, I've only got $2.64. I'll see you on Friday. But hey,
I can just see all the Melbourne friends lining up now who are basically saying, "Oh, Amy's coming back to town. I need to adjust my provisioning jar for next
yeah, they've been building a war chest. They haven't been spending on holidays either." Hey, Amy, it's been fascinating. It's been a really fun conversation with you. So for me, I want to round it out by saying, what do you now have? We asked you about the conversations you had with your parents growing up, and you said Dad would send you checks just to sort out some red ink. But what would he be thinking now if I'm having the conversation with your dad, saying, "Wow, listen to the conversation we've just had with Amy. She's very savvy. She's clearly taken on your advice to invest in her education. She's reaping the rewards of the income of that, but she's also, what we would consider to be an elite money manager in terms of knowing how to manage a 7-day float and meeting your obligations and trapping some surplus." So what sort of reflection, if you had any, on what would your dad be thinking about the late 20s version to the current version of you now?
I'm unsure, because I don't talk to him about it that much, funnily enough. Because I tried to make him be my accountant when I moved here. I was like, well, you do my UK accounts. Can you do my Australians? And he's like, no, I'm not learning Australian tax law. Get an accountant there. But I think he would be interested to see the change from when I was younger. And he does know that I've got an investment property or two, and I'm trying to buy a new home. And he said, and I said, oh, this is what one of the mortgage brokers have said. This is another option. And he said, well, I'm glad to see you're taking sound advice and not just. So I think he still might assume on occasion that I don't know as much as I might do. But that's because I did behave in that way for so many years. But it's difficult because I haven't seen him for 2 years, because I haven't been back to the UK. They can't come here. So maybe he hasn't seen me demonstrate those behaviors. So once he will see that, then it might change. But I don't know, because I talk to my friends about it, but actually I don't really talk to my family about it that much, which is a bit weird. But I'm just haven't seen them for so long.
You might have to point them to this podcast episode and they'll get a full update. Hey, you've got the floor now, Amy. So what, coming on here and talking to the community, any final bits of advice that you'd like to share with the community?
So I asked a few friends. My friend that I spoke to about earlier, who had the debt, she's paid all her debt off, and she's now saving for her first house deposit. And I said, is there anything that you think that has been useful that we've talked about? And she said, definitely the books and the education that I've passed her way. So Effie Zaha's book is a fantastic one. The Property Couch book, she's borrowed that one as well. Another friend said, it's good because you're a single woman, and lots of people will be saying, I can't do it on my own, but I'm not doing it on my own. I've got friends that support me, and I find experts to ask for the advice. There are people out there who know what they're doing. Like, I send patients to see a physio or another physician who's got more expert knowledge than I have. I don't try and do everything for a single patient, because my area is a small part of the body, and there's other people that have got better advice to give. So it's knowing that there's other people to ask for help. And sometimes you have to outsource and you pay for that information, but that's because someone else has spent a long time getting HECS debt and their education, and they're an expert in that field. Like, I wouldn't try and do my own accounts. My accountant does that because he's an expert in that. So my friend said, definitely doing it on your own sounds scary, but I haven't done it on my own, but I am a single woman. So you can do it on your own. You just need to ask for help and know who to ask for help. And there's lots of ways to find that information. And another friend said, it's not waiting for the perfect home or dream home, or trying to save up as much money as possible to get the best one. Getting in that property ladder and then releasing your equity is going to be the way forward. And that's what she's been doing in her property investment journey. And lots of her friends are saying, well, I don't want to live there. I want this, this, and this. And you can't afford that on a single person's income, because you can't service that size of a loan. So it's getting in and thinking, well, the long-term plan is it's another 20 years. You're not going to live in the same place for 20 years. our parents did that, but we don't do that nowadays.
Yeah, very, very
Sage advice.
Sage advice, yeah, because I think what is interesting too is you have embraced the fact that you're doing it on your own. You've looked for opportunities where you need to draw group strength when you need to, but also saying, if it's to be, it's up to me. I've got the information. I've learned what I need to learn, and I'm applying it and putting it into action. So I think it's I reckon there'd be a lot of people who'd be listening to this episode who draw a lot of strength from a lot of things that you're saying, Amy. But I'd like to thank you for coming on and being transparent and sharing your journey with us. Thanks for being so effusive about the feedback around the Property Couch and the books. We're really excited that's been a part of your journey. But I got to say, to hear that you're trapping surplus, that you're putting it into plan, you've got a roadmap for where you want to go, and things are looking pretty good for you, gives me an enormous amount of joy to know that Ben and I have played a bit of a part in that. But on behalf of everyone here on the Property Couch, thanks for joining the summer series.
Well, thanks for the invite and all the free advice and free education that is provided with the Property Couch podcasts. It's invaluable.
Thanks, Amy. It's amazing.
It's a pleasure.
Wow. My takeaways. Bit of undisciplined spending, and Amy understands it. She recognised it, to moving towards disciplined spending, and then that horrible thing we do where we look back in time and we go, "Ooh, what could have been?" But there was no, in some cases, lived experience. Got a lot out of it. Went around places, did some amazing work. Also, some great work in Africa there. So I'm like, I'm a forward-looking person. You can, as long as you learn, and that's exactly what Amy did. So my takeaways are really strong here, that if you've got, this is a time-poor professional story, and we talk about, obviously, some of the more challenging stories of where you start in life to where you are today. This one's a story that I've still got, there's plenty of wide in terms of Amy's story. And I quite like the fact that we're, so far, and obviously what we've got planned, we've got a real mixture of people in different sort of life stages and potentially demographics. And I think this one's a story for me really strongly about time poor professional, getting on with it, putting herself into a great position and not leaving anything to chance. Now.
No, she's a disciple of Money Smarts, Ben. It would be fair to say that it's worked for her. She's an advocate of it, sharing with her friends. She's created a group of people that get together and chat about it, which is a really great accountability strategy. So I want everyone to take that away too, to find a study buddy, if you like, a money study buddy. There you go. That's a mouthful. So
I like that. Money study buddy.
There we go. Money
study that might stick.
Yeah, well, there we go. But she said she was a sport brat, quoted the fact that she was spending everything and had dad to pay it off. But what a wonderful transformation that has been for you, Amy. So we appreciate you coming on. There's lots there. But I think the main takeaway, amongst actually a bunch of others, is just the longevity at the game of managing the money, the peace that comes from it, knowing where everything is. So hopefully that was a good set of takeaways, Ben, for our listeners in this summer series. As we are just starting to get started, Ben, we're in second gear here on the summer series. Plenty of great guests for us to continue to chat with. Just a reminder, as we are well and truly in the shadows of Christmas, Ben, if you do have someone that is interested in property investing, money management, if you go to thearmchairguide.com.au, we'll give you a free book that you can maybe gift to someone for Christmas that you think might need it. All you need to do is pay for the postage. So go to thearmchairguide.com.au, you can check that out. Or if you want to do what Amy is doing and implement Money Smarts this side of Christmas, Ben, because it's probably a good place to start rather than worrying about the credit card bill on the other side, go to makemoneysimple.again.com.au and you can download a free copy of our best-selling book, Make Money Simple Again, mate. But it's been lots of fun. I always enjoy chatting with you. I always enjoy chatting with our guests, mate. But until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.
Hey guys, Bryce here again. Just want to catch you before you go and let you know, if you're new to our community, there are a lot of episodes to catch up on, but it's really important that you start from the very beginning at episode number 1. because episode 1 through to 20 share all of the foundational pillars and frameworks that you need to know to get the best out of listening to this podcast. So I'd recommend that you start there, and the little tip is to maybe start on 1.5 speed. Now, for those of you that are time poor and don't have time to go back from the beginning, don't worry, we've got you covered as well, because we've created a binge guide that goes through all of the details and makes it easy for you to read and get up to speed very, very quickly. So if you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, you will be able to download that binge guide and you will be up to speed in no time. And whilst you're there, I've got a few extra goodies for you, because we have our top 5 frameworks that you'll learn on this podcast, as well as the Make Money Simple Again ebook, which will help you with the foundations of basic money management, so you'll have everything you need to succeed in building your own lifestyle design and getting the best out of this podcast. Now, just a reminder that anything that we cover on this podcast is not considered financial advice. We certainly recommend that you get your unique circumstances looked at by your individual advisor, and everything we talk about is just general in nature. To thepropertycouch.com.au/fast track, and you can go and get all those goodies and catch up right away.